Another very interesting thing is that if you actually go to the book of Exodus, when we were at Mount Sinai, the very famous event that unless someone's an atheist, everyone agrees that the Jewish people got the Torah at Mount Sinai. But we have something very interesting. It says in the book of Exodus chapter 20, verse 15, the entire people saw the thunder and the flames, the sound of the shofar, and the smoking mountain. The people saw and trembled and stood from afar. Later on, in the book of Deuteronomy, Moshe Rabbeinu also says, you saw Hashem's words at Mount Sinai. Now, Chazal says, what do you mean you saw? We heard his words. We heard the sounds. But like we said in the beginning of the Lashah, there's no such thing as a mistake in the Torah. It's divine. So Chazal actually says, the sages say, no, they actually saw the sounds. When Hashem spoke, there was writings on the sky. When the shofar was blown, the sound made an image in the sky. So there was some scientists that wanted to see if it's possible to see sound. One was a scientist by the name of Yaakov Guggenheim, an engineer, where he connected different machines to his voice, and he started trying to make his voice make this machine draw what he's saying. So if he says apple, he wants the machine to draw an apple, or draw a word that says apple. A similar research was done by another scientist named Chaim Ben Arav Chai Elbaz. He's a physicist. So both of them had these machines, different strategies, but the same purpose. So what do you do when you try to make sounds? If you say ow, what is the machine going to draw? So you have to go to the simplest possible thing. Where do you go? To the alphabet. A, B, C, D. When they said A, Babkis, nothing came out. They said B, nothing. C, D, E, nothing. Said, oh, you know what? Let's try a different language. Tried different languages, nothing. Baruch Hashem, one of them was a religious Jew. He said, oh, I also know Hebrew. So he tried Hebrew. And both of them discovered the same thing. The only language that the machine draws is Hebrew. When he said the letter Tet, the machine drew an image of Tet, exactly as we know it from the Torah. When he said Ayin, he drew an Ayin. Pei. See, exact. This is not like a coincidence. These pictures are a little bit bigger. When they said A, nothing came out. Looks more like an E than an A. B looked like just random. C, D, nothing. Nothing looks like anything. But if you look at the Ayin, it looks like an Ayin. Lamed, you see a Lamed. Bet, you see a Bet. Zayin, you see a Zayin. Every letter in the Hebrew alphabet, you see the machine drawing it. From what? From sound. So apparently, Chazal wasn't kidding when they said that according to the Torah we saw Hashem's words. There is a way to see sound. Another doctor wanted to see if we're the only ones that actually have life. So about 60 years ago, Sir Jagdish Chandra Bose, an Indian researcher of internationally renowned and one of the pioneers of research in the field of plant life, started looking into this, started looking into if there's a way to prove that plants have a life. He did more and more research, and then his research someone took a piggyback off of his research and built on top of it a person by the name of Cleve Baxter. Now, Cleve Baxter was actually an American polygraph expert. He had nothing to do with this experiment. But he wanted to see one day if you could detect anything from a plant. So he connected the polygraph to the plant. Obviously the plant's not lying, he's not saying anything. So he tested it. So he brought a fish and he took the fish out of the bowl. And automatically he started seeing the plant, the polygraph start making moves as if it's panicking. He put the fish back into the bowl and the plant calmed down. Then he lit a match, saying to himself, I'm going to burn this plant. The plant started making the same type of movement as if someone that's actually in a panic, someone that's being burned. And then he said, okay, you know what, maybe, okay, it sees apparently this plant, but can it read a mind? So his friend came into the room, and all of a sudden he saw his plant making a similar gesture to someone that's very upset. He says, what did you think? Honestly? He goes, yeah, what did you think? What did you think? I'm researching something. I just thought that my plant is nicer than your plant. Apparently the plant also has feelings. Chazal said this already in the Torah. It says that when a tree falls, you could hear, when a tree is cut, you could hear the screams of the tree from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth. They weren't talking figuratively, they were talking serious. The microscope was invented 330 years ago and discovered blood cells in bone marrow. And it actually learned that finally that the real healing power is in the bone marrow. The bone marrow is, as far as the significance of the bone marrow, was only discovered later. As far as blood was discovered 330 years ago, to correct myself. In the Gemara Masechet Chulin, the Gemara Tractate Chulin, page 125a, Abaye, one of the greatest sages that ever lived, he's in practically every page of the Gemara, says, an animal with the exterior wound, the brain of bone, which is in essence bone marrow, deals from within, the outside. Meaning that the healing comes from within the bone to heal this wound. There's a disease called hemophilia. Women carry this, but it affects only men. Now, if a child has it, you're not allowed to, if a child is born with it, you're not allowed to circumcise him. Now in the Gemara, Masechet Yevamot, page 64b, the sages explain that they stopped 4 sisters from circumcising their babies after 3 sisters had their baby die. Why? Because they believe that they had this hemophilia. Rabbi Yochanan explains that I told her not to circumcise the next child because he has this specific disease, and this is something that the women carry, but only men receive it.